Amelia King had always believed that her words were her sanctuary, that her stories were a testament to her soul's resilience. But tonight her sanctuary lay in ruins, her hands trembling. As she tore apart her office papers scattered across the hardwood floor, her breath ragged with panic, the final draft of her latest screenplay, The Last Solstice, had vanished a ghost in the darkness. Amelia's mind raced through the possibilities: betrayal, theft, sabotage, as she rifled through desk drawers overturned, file cabinets, and rifled through old scripts. Her heartbeat thundered louder than the rain lashing at her window. With every empty folder, her desperation grew deeper, like a drowning woman, clawing for air, the sound of her frantic search, the rustle of paper, the sharp crack of drawers slamming shut. It was a symphony of fear that echoed in her skull. She collapsed in her chair, eyes scanning the chaos around her, pulse a frantic drumbeat. Amelia had worked for years to reach this moment. Last Solstice was supposed to be her masterpiece, her redemption after the heartbreak of past failures. But now it was gone as if it had never existed at all in the aftermath of the storm. She found a single note tucked under her keyboard, a cryptic message scrawled in red ink. "The sun sets for those who dare to dream." Amelia stared at the words, her mind spinning. Who would do this? Who would take the work she had poured her soul into? She thought of her colleagues, the ones who'd whispered envy behind. Polite smiles, she thought of Marcus, her ex-assistant, who'd left under a cloud of resentment, his final words dripping with bitterness. And then there was the anonymous bidder, the shadowy figure, who'd tried to buy an early draft at an online auction. Amelia's pulse quickened as she imagined their faces, the glances that lingered too long, the silences that spoke louder than words. She would find them. She swore to herself she would find whoever had taken the Last Solstice, even if it meant losing. Everything else in the days that followed, she threw herself into the hunt, each suspect more tantalizing than the last. Marcus had motive, but his alibi was ironclad. A jealous colleague had been out of town on the night of the theft. The mysterious bidder vanished into the ether, leaving nothing but a string of dead ends. Each lead that crumbled beneath her only fed the fire in Amelia's gut. She refused to let the script die. She refused to let the shadows steal her story. Every night she sat at her desk, lit only by the flickering glow of her computer screen, studying every clue, every lie her eyes read from sleepless nights, her resolve hardening like iron. Then she found him, Ethan, an online author whose work was a mirror to her own. His latest post, a scene ripped straight from The Last Solstice, word for word, breath for breath. Amelia's skin prickled as she read his words, the rhythm, the cadence, the soul of her story. Wearing another man's name, she knew she had to confront him to uncover the truth. She watched his videos, read his blog posts, every carefully chosen word a dagger in her chest. Ethan was charming, magnetic, the kind of writer who drew people in like moths to a flame. But beneath the easy smile, she saw the shadows of hesitation in his eyes. When he spoke of inspiration, the way he shifted in his seat. When asked about his process, she reached out to him with a polite email that belied the fury in her veins. He agreed to meet her at a dimly lit café, the air thick with the scent of roasted coffee and unspoken truths. Amelia's hand shook as she slid the script across the table, the pages trembling like her heart. She watched Ethan's face as he read each word, his eyes flicking up to meet hers, then back down to the stolen lines. She demanded the truth, and he gave it, or so it seemed, his voice cracking under the weight of confession. He spoke of dreams deferred, a talent overshadowed, of a desperate need to be seen, to be heard. He told her he had found her script online, stumbled upon it like a treasure in the dark, and taken it piece by piece because he believed it was too good to stay hidden. His eyes glistened with a mix of regret and admiration as he spoke of her brilliance, of how he wanted to be part of that light, even if it meant stealing it. But even as a confession spilled from his lips, something in Amelia's gut twisted a chill that refused to thaw. Ethan's words were too smooth, too rehearsed. She dug deeper, retracing every step, every lie, and to the real truth revealed itself in the cracks. Ethan wasn't the mastermind. He was a pawn, a distraction hired to keep her eyes on him. While the real thief moved in the shadows, the real culprit was closer than she'd ever imagined. Sarah, a rival screenwriter whose career had long been eclipsed by Amelia's success. Sarah, whose bitterness festered like a wound. Sarah, who had smiled at Amelia's readings, but seethed with jealousy when the applause faded. It was Sarah who had copied the screenplay page by page while Ethan's confession bought her time. It was Sarah who had sent the cryptic messages, who had watched from the sidelines as Amelia tore herself apart. Amelia's heart shattered as she pieced it all together. Betrayal cut deeper than any theft. She confronted Sarah in a cold, echoing studio, the air between them electric with accusation and regret. Sarah's eyes were hard, her lips twisted in a bitter smile as she confessed to the theft. Her words dripping with venom, she spoke of years spent in Amelia's Shadow of Night spent rewriting scenes only to see Amelia's name on the marquee. She wanted to watch Amelia fall, to see her doubt herself, and give up, but she hadn't counted on Amelia's fire on her refusal to be broken. Amelia listened to Sarah's confession, her fists clenched, but her spirit unyielding. She would not let Sarah's envy consume her. She would not let this theft define her. With Sarah exposed, the truth set free, the Last Solstice was returned to its rightful owner, Amelia's name shining in. The credits as a film adaptation lit up the screen. Her triumph was a blaze of color and light, a testament to her strength, to the power of perseverance. In the aftermath of betrayal, Amelia sat alone in her office. Once more the flicker of candlelight casting long shadows on the walls. She thought of the journey, the sleepless nights, the tears, the moments when giving up seemed easier. She thought of the lesson she had learned in the crucible of lost to trust her instincts, to guard her words like sacred treasures, to believe in her vision. Even when the world conspired to steal it, she spoke softly into the silence, her voice a promise to herself. And to every creator who had ever been robbed of their work, you are stronger than the darkness. You are the keeper of your story. Amelia rose from her chair, her eyes blazing with purpose. She reached out to other writers, sharing her story, her scars, and her triumphs. She spoke of the importance of community, of supporting each other in an industry that could be cruel and cold. She became a beacon for those who felt lost in the shadows, a testament to the power of art and the fire of perseverance. She told them to protect their work, to never stop believing the worth of their words, to rise each time they were knocked down. And in the final frames of her story, the camera pulled back to show Amelia at her desk, once more pen in hand, eyes alight with determination, the notes of an inspiring song swelling in the background as she wrote her next masterpiece. This was her message to the world, a reminder that no thief, no betrayal could silence her voice. The screen faded to black, but her story lived on, a call to action for every dreamer, every creator to stand firm in their passion, to protect the stories that only they could tell, and to believe in the power of perseverance. Even when the night seems endless, Amelia's journey was proof that no matter how fierce the storm, the sun will always rise again, and with it the promise of a new chapter yet to be written. Amelia's name was etched in the credits, the opening night, a blur of lights and applause. But as the world celebrated the Last Solstice, Amelia found herself adrift, the echoes of Sarah's betrayal still clinging to her like a shadow. She smiled for the cameras, posed for the interviews, but at night she sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by half-empty wine glasses and the silent hum of her thoughts. She replayed every moment, every word, every stolen line until they felt like old scars. She traced her fingers over framed script pages on her wall, the words she fought to reclaim, the words that were hers alone. She knew now that the greatest battle wasn't over the script itself. It was over her sense of worth, or belief in her own voice. Amelia began to write again, slowly, cautiously, each word a fragile step into the light. Her laptop glowed in the darkness, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat, urging her forward. She wrote, not for the world, not for the applause, but for herself. She wrote to reclaim the joy that had once fueled her, to remember the spark that had started all. She poured her fears, her doubts, her triumphs into every sentence, her words a testament to the fire that no thief could ever steal. She wrote betrayal and a resilience of the quiet power that comes from standing tall in the face of darkness. She wrote of how Sarah's theft had almost broken her, and how she had chosen instead to rise. Amelia knew that her story was no longer just hers. It was a lifeline to every creator who had been silenced, who had felt the sting of stolen dreams. She took to the stage at small writers' gatherings, her voice shaking at first, then strong with conviction. She spoke of what she had learned, of the importance of safeguarding your work, of trusting the voice that whispers in the dead of night when the world is asleep. She shared the resources she had discovered, the legal tools, the contracts, the quiet power community. She watched as young writers in the crowd nodded their heads, their eyes alight with hope, their hands clutching notebooks and pens. She saw herself in them, in their hunger, in their fear, in their fragile belief that their words could change the world. And she told them that it was possible, that even when the shadows come to steal your story, the light within you is stronger. She told them that no one can truly take what lives in your heart. In the months that followed, Amelia's name became a rallying cry, a symbol to fight to protect creative work. She turned her experience into a mission, forming a collective of artists determined to stand together to guard each other's dreams. They called it the Solstice Collective, a name born from the ashes of her stolen script, a testament to the light that endures through the longest night. Together, they built a community, a fortress of collaboration and trust, a place where ideas were nurtured, not stolen, where every voice was honored, where betrayal had no foothold. Amelia watched as young screenwriters found the courage to share their drafts without fear as seasoned artists opened their doors to mentor and protect. She felt a sense of purpose blooming in her chest, something stronger and purer than the bitterness of betrayal. It was the power of solidarity, of knowing that you are not alone in the fight, to keep your story safe and true. But even as Amelia thrived, she never forgot the night she had spent tearing apart her office, the night she had stared into the abyss of loss and found her own strength. She kept that memory close like a talisman, a reminder that darkness is always waiting, but that the light within her is stronger. She kept writing her scripts richer, more fearless than before. She took chances, she pushed boundaries. She let her stories be as wild and honest as her soul demanded. And when The Last Solstice finally premiered to critical acclaim, she didn't see it as a victory over Sarah or Ethan or anyone else. It was a victory over doubt, over the tiny voice that had whispered, maybe you're not good enough. It was a victory of faith in her own voice and her own vision. She stood at the edge of the stage that night, the applause washing over her like a tide, but she knew that the real triumph was not in the cheers, but in the quiet moment when she chose to believe in herself again. In the final shot of her journey, Amelia sat alone at her desk, the dawn light streaming through her window, her pen moving across the page, her face lit with quiet determination. She looked out at the world, not with fear, but with hope. The message she had carried through every stolen line, every sleepless night, was clear and unwavering. No one can steal your soul. No one can steal your fire. Your stories are yours to tell, and your light can outshine any darkness. The final frame lingered on Amelia's steady hand, writing the first words of her next screenplay, her reflection clear in a window. Behind her, the sunrise blazing over the city. A new day, a new story, a new chance to rise. The music swelled as the screen faded to black, a call to every creator watching to stand in their power, to trust the fire within them, to know that no matter how fierce the night, the dawn will always come again, and with it the promise of something beautiful waiting to be written. Amelia's journey had taken her to the edge of darkness and back, but as she stood before the mirror that final morning, she saw not the woman who had once been consumed by fear and betrayal, but the woman who had chosen to rise. Her eyes held a quiet confidence, her posture spoke of battles fought, and once she smoothed her hair back, took a deep breath, and stepped into the world ready to claim what was hers. This was the day the Solstice Collective would unveil their first collaborative project, a series of short films written by new voices and guided by Amelia's hand. She walked the crowded venue, the hum of excitement filling the air, young writers milling about, scripts in hand, their faces alight with hope and determination. She felt a surge of pride in them. And in herself, this was no longer just about her stolen words. It was about the power of creation, the sanctuary of community, the promise that no one stands alone. She took the stage. The hush that fell over the room was electric. Amelia looked out over the faces, so many of them mirrors of who she had been. She began to speak, her voice calm but fierce. She spoke of the nights she had spent doubting of the moment. She realized her worth was never in the stolen words, but in the fire that burned within her. She spoke of Ethan's confession, of Sarah's betrayal, of the tangled web of lies that had once threatened to break her. She spoke of how she had chosen instead to build something new, something unbreakable, a community of voices. Louder than any thief's silence, she told them that their stories mattered, that no one could steal the soul that fuels a writer's words, that no matter how many shadows rose to snatch away their dreams, the light of their vision was stronger. She ended with simple truth, one that had carried her through every dark hour. Your voice is your power, your words are your birthright. They had a fire no one can extinguish. When the last applause rang out, Amelia stepped from the stage into the embrace of her collective, the young writers. She had nurtured the creators she had inspired. Together, they watched as the first short film flickered to life on the screen, a testament to the power of resilience, the belief that every stolen dream can be reborn brighter and stronger than before. The night wore on, laughter mingling with the music, the promise of new beginnings. In every beat of the night, Amelia stepped outside for a moment, the city lights shimmering around her, the air cool and alive. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the weight of it all, the pain, the betrayal, the triumph, the knowledge that every word she wrote had been a step toward this moment. She realized that the real story had never been about the stolen screenplay. It had always been about her journey to believe in her own voice, to stand unwavering in the storm, to rise not in spite of the shadows, but because of them. As the credits rolled on the final film, Amelia found herself surrounded by those she had once feared to trust, young writers, older mentors, strangers, now family, each of them carrying the spark she had fought so hard to keep alive. They stood together in that crowded room, a testament to what could be built when you refuse to let darkness. When Amelia smiled a real smile, this time one that reached her eyes and warmed her heart. She knew there would be other battles, other nights when doubt would creep in, but she also knew that she would never face them alone, that her words, her fire, her light would always find a way to shine. As the final shot of night played out on the screen, Amelia's reflection glowed in the flickering image as a woman who had weathered the storm and emerged unbroken, her voice a beacon, her story a map for those who would come after her. She turned away from the screen, her steps sure and steady, the music swelling in her ears. She walked into night knowing that the final chapter was never an ending, only a new beginning waiting to be written in the quiet of that night. She knew the truth. She had always carried the power within her, and no one, no betrayal, no thief, no darkness could ever take that away. The dawn would always come, and with the promise of her own bright and unstoppable voice. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that matter, and let's keep the conversation going.